For the third consecutive election in Delhi, the Congress party scored the grand total of 0 seats. So, why is the Congress celebrating? There are those who support the Congress who are arguing that this is a jolt not just for the Aam Aadmi Party, but for the entire opposition. Not just are questions being raised about the future of the opposition bloc that used to be called the India bloc, the fact that the Congress party has done pretty much dismally in every election since the Lok Sabha verdict, where the Modi government slipped below the majority mark, raises serious questions once again about the leadership and the organizational structure and health of the party. Supporters like Sanjay Jha have plaintively gone on social media to say that the party that they otherwise support is gripped by a self destructive paralysis. We'll be talking to Sanjay Jha in just a moment. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. The full political consequences of the Delhi election and its verdict continue to be felt. The BJP is at the helm of Delhi after a gap of 27 years. The Aam Aadmi Party is facing a rout with many of its own top leaders, including Arvind Kejriwal, defeated in their constituencies. But what about the fate of the Congress? Why is the Congress so happy? Is the Congress drawing its pleasure and its sustenance from the defeat of Arvind Kejriwal? Is that how the Congress party should be reacting after a third consecutive zero for the party in the national capital, where Sheila Dikshit, once upon a time, was widely considered to be one of the best performing chief ministers of Delhi. And even today, there is a great deal of nostalgia for her. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, as the results came in, was asked to comment on the Delhi result. And she said she just landed in an airport somewhere and she said she hadn't even seen the numbers. Is that how a top leader of the party should be talking? Sanjay Jha, whom you often see on our program, is only one of those who is now raising questions that he's raised in the past, and he's now turning the attention of the party he supports back to those questions. Sanjay Jha joins me now. Sanjay Jha is addressing not just the Congress party, but also liberals who support it blindly, and is pointing to the uncomfortable writing on the wall. If this goes on, because remember, Sanjay, every assembly election since the Lok Sabha verdict has gone terribly for the Congress. The Congress will be back to the kind of existential battles it was fighting before June 2024. What are your thoughts today? Why did you feel the need to go on social media and remind the party that you support, even though it suspended you as a spokesperson, wake up and smell the coffee?
Barkha, first and foremost, great to be with you on your program. You know that I'm ideologically a congressman, and I'll always be a supporter of the party, which is why I think it causes me anguish when I see those results. I was on the Times Now studio, and there were a lot of people who were supporters of the BJP on the panel, and I had to, they were literally laughing, they were sniggering, and I told myself, I mean, the Congress has asked for it. I thought of the 2009 Lok Sabha elections. Barkha, you will remember the Congress swept all the 7 Lok Sabha seats in Delhi. And look at the state of the party today. Just compare it with the fact that today the party struggles to win 1 assembly seat in 3 consecutive elections. I mean, this is like absolutely surreal. And what disappoints me is I don't think the Congress feels the pain, at least it is not visible or exhibited on camera. I think when you lose an election, your body language should demonstrate that you are feeling blown by it. I remember Prime Minister Narendra Modi after the June Lok Sabha upset. I mean, he was becoming the Prime Minister for the 3rd time. But if you look at his expressions closely, he looked very distraught. He was disappointed. The Congress had won 99 seats, a definite improvement, but everybody was in a mood to celebrate. Now, I acknowledge the fact that we live in very difficult times. It is fairly uneven, the whole battlefield. The institutions, the election commission, the big media, etc. There is a regulatory capture. But the answer, Barkha, to that is not to start celebrating too early. Because if we go by that logic, when will the Congress party ever win? Because the constant crib or the complaint will be that the media is against you, uh, the whole system is against you, the ED, CBI, income tax harasses you. By that logic, when will the turnaround happen? And the fact remains, as a political party, which is right in saying that India is facing a huge authoritarian backlash and a sectarian environment, you have to figure out a way to win despite these headwinds. So I
Yeah.
just want to tell you that I have felt extremely sad at the fact that I don't see the Congress really speaking to the people and saying, where did we go wrong? Just like Narendra Modi speaks, if you notice, every time they do well in an election, Modi addresses the BJP karyakartas and they all have a 45-minute speech and they celebrate it. I would have liked it if Mr. Kharge or Rahul Gandhi or any other leader of the Congress held a similar interaction with his party members and his leaders and his karyakartas and said, why did we go wrong? Let it be televised. Talk about it. Because that is where you acknowledge where you're going wrong. And I think the Congress has to recognize that winning is a habit, so is losing.
Do you think losing is a bad habit that the Congress is stuck with?
Well, think about it, Barkha. I mean, there was a sudden resurrection in June. I
Yeah.
met lots of people who began to believe that this could be a turnaround. Then you have the dramatic collapse in Haryana. Uh, Maharashtra, where I live, has been absolutely dismal. And now, Delhi, frankly speaking, nobody had too many expectations. But for the party to contest 70 seats, to lose the deposit in 67, I think it's like literally saying goodbye to the Sheila Dikshit legacy. And is this what the Congress party workers who slog even in difficult times, do they deserve it?
Yeah, Sandeep Dikshit, whose picture you see on the screen, he told me that the Congress party had refused to own the legacy of his mother. He seemed like a very lonely figure in this election. It seemed that the Congress had only one aim in this election, to see Arvind Kejriwal cut down to size, and they seemed even happier that he had been defeated than the BJP. I mean, how does a party that has scored zero for the third consecutive election in the national capital celebrate because Kejriwal has lost? I don't get it.
I think that's a very peculiar Schadenfreude. I mean,
Mhm.
it's easy to blame that Arvind Kejriwal destroyed the Congress in Delhi. It's a fact. The India Against Corruption agitation, along with Anna Hazare, which a lot of people believe had a political backing of the RSS, uh, it basically nullified the Congress's base, which, by the way, they were at a high with 206 Lok Sabha seats in 2009. Well, the answer to that question is, who asked the senior leaders to go to the airport to receive Baba Ramdev? Who asked you? Can you imagine a Narendra Modi government giving space to civil society leaders to frame a legislation on anti corruption? If you buckled, it's your problem. I mean, today, if Arvind Kejriwal is being looked at with a lot of sadistic glee by the Congress to say, look, you have been shown the door. Well, let me tell you, Arvind Kejriwal and thereafter Mr. Modi were collateral beneficiaries of that agitation that the Congress did not handle well. I have written that in my book, and Barkha, you'll agree with me that the Congress lost that Lok Sabha election in 2011 itself. I mean, thereafter, it was just like the formalities that played out. So I just feel that the Congress party today needs to lead the India alliance. Now, I feel that today, if you look at Delhi, I can understand that the Congress has an existential predicament, and they had to fight in Delhi either in an alliance with the Aam Aadmi Party or separately. An alliance, I think, would have been a bad idea. It would have actually consolidated votes in favor of the BJP.
No,
And
but
both
hang
Pragmatic.
on. But hang on. If you look at Arvind Kejriwal's own seat, it's being called the revenge of Sandeep Dikshit for all the attacks that Arvind Kejriwal made on his mother, because the 3,000 odd votes, little over 3,000 votes that Sandeep Dikshit garnered were the difference between the BJP win and Arvind Kejriwal's loss. So the AAP is certainly blaming the Congress.
Well, there is an arithmetical or a mathematical projection that can be made, but there is a problem, and I'll tell you where the problem lies. Aam Aadmi Party was sitting on 62 seats in the assembly. If they were to come to an understanding with the Congress, they would have had to tell MLAs who have won the election to actually step aside or to give assembly seats where they have defeated the Congress to the Congress on the assumption that it's going to be part of a bigger seat sharing formula. I don't think that would have worked at all. So the simple answer is that the Congress party here needs to recognize that you had to compete with Arvind Kejriwal. You did not have to call him anti-national. Now, I think the focus of the Congress should have been a better development politics, an improvement over what AAP actually did. It can't be a mere tinkering that somebody gave 2,100 and I'll give 2,500. That even a young child can do a 400 rupee edition and say, hey, that's my manifesto. I think there was a lack of application in really creating an ambience that you were in the fight. If the Congress Barkha really wanted to send out a message that they were serious about Delhi, if it was just going to be nothing but smart political optics, they could have said, hey, we believe that Sandeep Dixit is going to be our chief ministerial candidate. It's not going to happen. But you're going to get a lot of people to feel that the Congress is taking this fight seriously. And therefore, people would back you probably with bigger numbers. You would still maybe you would win a handful of seats. Your vote share would go up. And you would fight the election on governance because you just can't say that Arvind Kejriwal is an anti-national and win that election. But I think, Barkha, we need to focus on one point that a lot of people miss. And I'm sure your program is watched by many people within the Congress and the opposition. The truth is that the Congress has been on a decline for a long time. And many of us don't tend to understand those numbers. Just look at it. We have not won an absolute majority since 1984. Since 1984. If you remember, in 1991, after Rajiv Gandhi's assassination, the Congress party ended up with around 225 or 227. And then in 2009, you got 206 seats. So the Congress has really been on a decline for a long time. The second point, you've got to look at the data point. Every time Congress loses, it literally abdicates that state. And I'll give you a couple of states that are like really mind-blowing. Odisha in the year 2000 was the last time that the Congress was in power. In Gujarat, 1985. In Uttar Pradesh, 1985. Bihar, 1990. Tamil Nadu, 1967. West Bengal, 1972. Delhi, now 4 elections are gone. Andhra Pradesh, 2004. If you add up all these states, and West Bengal, I think 1972, you add up all these states, the Congress is literally not in the big states, which aggregate around 280 Lok Sabha seats. How are you ever going to be a significant player? And I go back, I remember because I started working with the Congress around 2004. I believe that the 2004 Lok Sabha results were actually what I call as a mirage, and frankly speaking, a victory that damaged the Congress internally. Because at 145 seats, you had a Congress prime minister. You had a Congress in government for the full 5 years in a coalition. And during that 2004 to 14 is the period where the Congress's organizational muscle began to actually atrophy. It actually never paid attention to it because it realized that I have a very low bar to be in government. And it felt that the BJP, after all the noise and hype and hoopla that they make, is going to be eventually just a marginal player. I think now the chickens are coming home to roost.
So let's come back to what the problem is. If the Congress has been on a decline for a long time, it means that the Congress has lost touch with how people think. It means that Congress is talking in its own echo chambers. The social media game of the Congress, for example. So you get kudos from people who already think like you. A party can't win elections unless it converts people who didn't vote for it the last time, right? What is the Congress doing to change the minds of those who are not necessarily committed BJP voters, but got disillusioned with the Congress?
Yeah. Well, Barkha, look at it. From a 49% vote share in 1984, the Congress is down to 22% vote share now. It improved marginally in the last election. The fact is that India has changed. And I think when India has changed, I think the Congress is still sitting on the old story that because we governed India and, frankly speaking, have done some good work,
Mhm.
the people will flock back on the nostalgia of what we did. And yes, the Congress brought about some remarkable landmark transformations, especially during Dr. Manmohan Singh's time, and it gave better GDP growth rate, poverty went down. But interestingly, the Congress doesn't seem to want to claim the whole liberalization story. The Congress is very mealy mouthed when talking about the fact that we truly, actually, between 2004 and 14, transformed India. You will not hear that language being spoken by the Congress. In fact, let me tell you that I believe that Rahul Gandhi or whoever is, the principal faces of the Congress party are making a terrible mistake but not engaging with even television channels. I feel this whole contempt, this they talk down to the big media. Now, I agree with you, Barkha. You have been part of media. You and I have, talked a lot
I'm
when you were in
still
India.
I'm still part of media, just not on television. Out of
Exactly.
choice,
Out of
out of principal choice.
Yeah, and I'm going to come to that. I have a point there as well. That if
Yeah.
you look at the Congress party, you cannot. There are people who are advising the leadership to stay away from big media. Why would you do that? I'll give you one example and why the
No,
party is on.
Sanjay, I don't think it's big media, small media. I think, please excuse me for saying this, I think
Yeah.
the Gandhi family does not engage with those who criticize it. To that extent, what it accuses Modi's BJP of doing, it's not so different itself. It may have a different way of expressing it. It may have a different response template. It may choose to ignore instead of being actively hostile. But I don't
Yeah.
think the Gandhi family engages with critics.
I will kind of agree with that, which is actually very disappointing for the simple reason that I have informed them, I messaged them, and I said, why aren't you actually engaging with the independent podcasters who are actually supporting you or taking a middle of the line, the
Or
centrist?
who are just independent and fair-minded.
Absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely, and they don't do that. I mean, I'm surprised as to why Rahul Gandhi wouldn't talk to you or Mr. Kharge wouldn't talk to you, and why.
Because I have on occasion criticized them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm looking at it that today, I mean, you have a Kamala Harris who goes on Fox News. You had the
Yeah.
Republicans who went on CNN and MSNBC. I mean, you can. I'll give you a classic example. Rahul Gandhi wrote a very good article in the Indian Express talking about how he's not anti industry, how he's not anti business, but he's anti crony capitalism. It was a good article, and I think absolutely a point well made. Now, tell me how many people read the Indian Express? I kind of believe that you got to go out there and talk to, give interviews left, right, and center, make your position clear. Think
Yeah.
about it. Today, the middle class of India is working largely in private sector companies, especially in the metros. How are they going to vote for you if they hear you and you're right in criticizing an Adani, whatever? But the fact remains that Congress has been seen as being an anti industry, anti business, anti anything which has got to do with economic growth. And the BJP hammers that point down. And the Congress looks clueless. So I think these are failures of the party. And I'm going to come back to that. Why doesn't Rahul talk to Ravish Kumar, to, I don't know, Deepak Sharma, Abhisar, to Barkha Dutt? And there are such good people out there, Akash Banerjee. There are forums, there are people who are fighting it independently. And you guys are doing a tremendous job. But end of day, the Congress decides to shut doors. And here is the irony. When it comes to an Adani issue, there's a press conference held at the AICC office. There you are inviting the mainstream media. Now you want them to carry that message. I find this very paradoxical and honestly a little absurd.
Yeah. So you're saying the Congress's communication strategy is absurd. Is that a fair summary?
It's failing. And I'll tell you something, the problem, and I've known this for a long time. The Congress party does not believe that political communication is a very core part of your electoral strategy. Give you an example. Look at Donald Trump. I mean, that man is changing the whole, complexion and character of what it means to campaign. But here is a man. That man is creating conspiracy theories. He is, contradicting himself, so much so that the madman theory of leadership is now hotly being debated. And here is a Congress party that is refusing to engage with the media. I'll give you an example. In 2014, the Congress party had hired somebody from abroad to come and advise them, I think through the PR agency. That man asked me a question. He said, "Why is Mr. Gandhi not talking to the media?" And I told him, obviously that's his choice. I can't really comment for him, but I believe he should. He said, in the United States, the president of America has to court the New York Times or the Washington Post for an op-ed or for an interview. In India, the politicians are so lucky because you got cameras chasing a politician. So I believe the Congress is doing itself no favor, and I hope through this program they hear this loud and clear. Go to any TV channel, people there, actually, if you talk to them, they will probably talk about you. Give you an example. I go a lot with Navika Kumar on Times Now. If Rahul Gandhi today tells Navika that I'm willing to have a 45-minute chat with you on Frankly Speaking, she's not going to say no. She's not going to say no. And I believe, the way Indian politics is positioned, you need to be dramatic. You need to do things different. You need to surprise people by doing things they don't expect of you. Narendra Modi, Congress always says, does a teleprompter and is got choreographed interviews. You got to be the exact opposite of Mr. Modi. And Rahul, I think, is missing a story here.
So let me ask you this. In your post on social media, you harked back to something you'd said earlier, and you said, what has fundamentally changed? Do you think that the Congress and its supporters, people like yourselves, made a mistake in how you read the June 2024 verdict? I mean, was there an overreading? Not a mistake, an overreading, because was there smugness? Was there complacency? What happened? What happened after June? How did the Congress lose every single election it fought after June?
It's absolutely intriguing. And I'll give you an example. One example that definitely comes to mind is after the June verdict, when Rahul had just finished his second Bharat Jodo Yatra, he was on a high. He was on a high. I would have wanted him, instead of going to the United States, which is good. I mean, I'm not against going to the United States and having meetings there and, going to universities, etc. But that was a time when he should have been all over the country in India. I'll give you an example. You go to universities in India, just go and address the CII on business. The same article that you wrote, address the industry. Come to Mumbai, talk to the film industry people. Have you seen how Narendra Modi, twice Prime Minister, was doing a photo op with the Kapoor family? Right? That's an important segment. Now, I can understand he's a prime minister, so it's easier for him to probably get the audience he likes. And nobody dares say no to Mr. Modi anyways. But the fact
And
remains,
he is the prime minister. Nobody would
yeah,
say no to the prime minister of India.
exactly. But I can tell you, does Mr. Modi stop the Congress from giving great speeches? Does Mr. Modi today tell Rahul Gandhi, don't go to Bombay and talk to anybody? No. So
Yeah.
I think these are all missed opportunities. And Barkha, I have always believed that India is a fascinating country. It is not a country where anybody is a forgiving country, Barkha. And the example that comes to my mind is 1977, when Mrs. Gandhi lost Shah Commission. She lost her own seat to what's his name, the
Raj Narayan.
Raj Narayan, and Sanjay Gandhi lost. And
Yeah.
she was back in 1980 with 350 odd seats. Can you imagine that comeback? The people of country are forgiving, but for God's sake, you got to reach out to them and talk to them. I think the Rahul Gandhi is doing some of his bit well, but I think he has to realize that if you're the leader of the opposition, then you got to take up every issue, not just Gautam Adani. I've known Rahul well, so I can tell you he's very comfortable speaking on the Adani issue in press conferences, but there have been hundreds of other issues he could speak on. And I'm writing a piece on that. Why didn't the leader of the opposition hold a press conference on Bangladesh, on foreign policy? I mean, come there and do a press conference on the budget with Mr. Chidambaram by your side, but make the bigger comments. Because I'm telling you, the way the times we live in, the leader of the opposition is a shadow prime minister. Then you can't be just talking about Adani. You got to
Yeah.
be out
And
on
see,
multiple issues.
and see, you can't be talking about Adani when your own alliance partners, your own chief ministers are not with you on that issue. That's also a problem on the Adani positioning. But let me ask you this. Has the Congress lurched too far to the left? Right? And this is a very important question because even people like Yogendra Yadav, who are bitter critics of the Modi government, he has said to me on more than one occasion, the secular idiom has lost connection with people. Liberals have given up, nationalism, cultural roots. We have not. He's saying we for himself that we the liberals have not figured out how to build a language on these issues, on the issue of nationalism, on the issue of religion, and on the issue of cultural roots. And a secular idiom has to be a different idiom now. And I think that is the main problem, that there's a sense that ye lefties hai, ye lefties hai. Most Indians are not. They're not on the right. They're not on the left. They're just in a centrist common sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Congress is meant to be the Big Ten party. The
Yeah.
truth is that India actually needs a centrist political party. And Barkha, India is not an either or country. Mr. Modi, for all his talk about being very pro market friendly and pro liberalization, is spending huge amounts of money on welfare and subsidies. He's giving food grains for several years to literally 58% of India's population. So the bottom line is this: India needs to work for the poor, for the middle class, for the farmers, and that is a big issue, because let's not deny, right? There is a huge amount of poverty. There are many people who are called as the neo middle class, but they have a couple of bad seasons and they could slip into poverty. There are massive challenges in the country. So the perception of the Congress for having just looked at only the aspect of caste reservation, or only looking at the poverty story, it basically hurts it, because India has to create growth. You need private investment, you need jobs which only manufacturing and exports can truly create. Mr. Modi is realizing today that if you don't have a booming private sector, you will struggle, which is why now he's forced to give all kinds of tax concessions. So the bottom line is that India needs the model of inclusive economic growth. And the best part is the Congress has an example of that under Dr. Manmohan Singh's 2004 to 14. Here was a man who gave Manrega. Here is a man who gave food security. He also brought in FDI in multi-brand retail. And under his time, the GDP grew at 7.8% over 10 years, and they lifted 270 million people out of poverty. The Congress has an example before it. But in terms of perception, Rahul Gandhi, because he doesn't engage with industry, he has not, I don't see when is the last time he went to a FICCI or an Indian Merchants Chamber or CII, or just kind of had a conversation with, five industrialists of India who are going to make the story big. That is where the perceptions have gone wrong. And because he's harped on Adani, which may be a huge issue, and I back that investigations must happen, the perceptions has gone completely skewed on the other side, and it damages the Congress.
Yeah. So, in terms of ideological battles, do you think that the Congress, instead of rebuilding the organization, is actually walking into the BJP's rather clever trap, which is, when you get caught up in esoteric ideological battles that aren't having a wider resonance among your voters, then that's a trap. You've got to find something of your own. You can't define yourself in opposition to Modi. And you see, there's another challenge now. All of these assembly elections have not had Modi as the face of their campaigns.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
your entire politics is anti-Modi, defining yourself against Modi, and the BJP isn't even using Modi as prominently in these assembly elections, then then what is this? What does it do to your ideological battles?
Barkha, let me tell you that you go back to what Omar Abdullah said during the time of the Jammu and Kashmir elections. He
Yeah.
said he said that the Congress party is always waking up late to the contest. And in Jammu, the Congress was a
Yeah.
disaster. We technically don't have a combined government there. So, I mean,
Correct.
these are all missed opportunities, and they emerged immediately in the aftermath of of a pushback or a comeback in the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. I will also tell you this is where the Congress's arrogance costed dear, and I think it's important to make this point. If you remember, between September and December of 2024, the Congress did not hold a single alliance meeting of the India Alliance,
Yeah.
because it was hoping to do well in Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh. and then use its new clout to actually bargain for better seats with India Alliance members. And the elections were just a few months away. This is the attitude of the Congress that I think a lot of people see as political hubris. That just because I give seats which I'm not likely to win to the regional alliances, the Congress believes I have done my job. But the truth is, when you're fighting with your back against the wall, against Mr. Modi's BJP, then you've got to actually make concessions and you got to be smart. I'll give you one example. There are books that I see all over the place that says, how does BJP win elections? One of them written by Prashant Jha. And I can tell you, I would have expected all congressmen to not just read the book, but to distribute it and kind of learn from what the book is got to say. I'm challenging you right now. 99% of the senior members in the Congress Working Committee will have either not heard of the book, and if they have heard of it, they have not read it. I have. And if you read that book, you'll realize, Barkha, why does BJP win? Because it applies pure common sense. How do you win an election? You have a template, you have a standard
Mhm.
operating procedure. It's not about just how much I allocate to various marketing spends, it's about the sequence that I follow. How do I basically make my pitch? At what time do I make my narrative more powerful? And that's how you fight an election. You actually have a chart that tells you, are my chances red, are they orange, or are they green? And accordingly you divide your time. These things are done with a very realistic focus. The BJP is winning elections, Barkha. It's a no brainer. It's because I've been part of the corporate world. I'll tell you, they're disciplined, they're organized, and then they execute it. It's not any magic wand. Mr. Modi knows what his team is going to do. If you notice, in the last assembly elections, he's taken a back seat. And now the party is beginning to win. And that should worry the Congress and the India Alliance. If
Exactly.
Mr. Modi is no longer that singular, spectacular face who's creating some kind of a hype, the party machine is beginning to work. The Congress, I remember the famous speech of Rahul Gandhi in Jaipur, where he said something and everybody laughed. But I worried about that when he said, sometimes we win elections and we don't know how we win elections. I think Congress still hasn't understood that India has changed.
Yeah. But let me ask you in the end, the elephant in the room. The machinery is one part of the problem. The arrogance is another part of the problem. Is the leadership part of the problem?
I definitely believe that Rahul Gandhi's frittered away the huge advantage that he had after the Bharat Jodo Yatra. I
Mm.
think his speeches are definitely more impactful. But I would still recommend that the Congress leaders, whoever they are, when they speak in parliament or when they speak in public gatherings, when they go on television or social media, they should recognize that you live in an age where everything that you say will get amplified. Use that opportunity. There are two kinds of people. You get an opportunity and you get intimidated. I'm talking to you and I come so paranoid that if I say something in Barkha's interview, the Congress will expel me and there'll be some drama. Or I come here and I tell you the things that I believe I'm convinced about. And then I try to convey to you in a manner that is interesting to hear and credible, more importantly. So I think if the Congress party doesn't recognize that you've got to take advantages of platforms, you'll miss it. And I think Rahul has frittered that advantage. Mr. Kharge will now actually feel the weight of these disappointments. There were a lot of people who felt that, he took away some of the administrative responsibilities from Rahul Gandhi and became a voice as well in the media, etc. But now I think he'll feel the pressure. So my simple, when I look at the Congress's problems is, which nobody will tell, but I will say so. Why did the Congress choose? He's a nice man. He's fought many elections. He's a fighter, Mr. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary. Why did they choose him to be the voice in Lok Sabha when you had a Sashi Tharoor and we have a Manish Tiwari? I know Sashi, you know Sashi. He's a brilliant parliamentarian. He's so
Yeah,
well read. He can literally answer questions on the fly. Does the Congress make good use of him? And the answer is no. So if you are
absolutely.
struggling and you don't know how
Yeah.
to use your best resources, then I do think it's a leadership problem.
So elaborate on that.
I think the Congress now needs to take a risk and bite the bullet and go back to what at least I said many moons ago, that a lot of
Yeah.
people thought that I was batting for Sachin Pilot. But I maintain that you need a Sachin Pilot Priyanka Gandhi ticket to make it happen. Now, I'll tell you why I say Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, because she communicates, and if she's given, I think, a free hand, she'll probably be on your channel. I just believe that the Congress is holding back some of its leaders from going out there and hitting the road, not just in terms of literally getting onto the nookers and the campaign, which they should be doing now. I would actually like the Congress to use this time till Bihar, because you got no elections coming. Use this as a time for an organization renewal, but give the baton to a Sachin Pilot. You can't afford to right now put the entire onus back on Rahul. Rahul should continue to do what he's doing. He's a leader of the opposition. That's a terrific responsibility in his hands. But again, I would still recommend that
So,
the
so you think
speeches.
Sachin Pilot should lead the Congress party?
I think he should be your face for the future. And Rahul Gandhi should be the leader of the opposition. Nothing wrong with that. Priyanka should be brought into the mainstream. And one suggestion that Barkha, nobody in the Congress has paid attention to, is the Congress needs a Congress president with four vice presidents kind of reporting to them. You need to have now a vice president east, south, north, and west. India is complicated and complex. You're in opposition. You got to be fighting harder than the BJP. The tragedy is the BJP is more aggressive despite the fact that it's been in power and it's in the central government.
But don't you think if you have a Sachin, hypothetically, not that I think anybody is going to listen to you, Sanjay, with no
Yeah,
disrespect to you,
that's
but
fine.
the point is, imagine for a moment that Sachin's role is elevated. The moment you
Mm.
couple it with a member of the Gandhi family, like you've suggested, the Congress needs a Sachin Pilot Priyanka ticket. What makes you think that Priyanka Gandhi will behave any differently from other members of the Gandhi family?
Well, I think that we'll only get to know when it happens. And I'm willing to believe that one should take the risk. From the little that I know of Priyanka, I think she'll be more than happy to accommodate anybody as long as the party is back in the hunt. And I just feel that, I hear Rahul Gandhi talk about India's democracy and the authoritarian manifestations of Mr. Modi's government. I agree with him. But what Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party need to recognize, you want to protect the idea of India, you want to put the Congress ideology in the forefront, you got to win elections. And until you understand that basic brass tacks, then you will see the withering away of this whole conversation on a liberal, secular, constitutionally, vibrant India.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
But very quickly, the other problem with this whole sort of democracy angst is that the voter has to buy into it. So, for
Yeah.
example, if you look at Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, Manish Sisodia, and Satyendra
Mhm.
Jain, all three lost their seats, right? All three
Mhm.
spent time in jail.
Mhm.
Now, there has been so much talk about weaponizing the Modi government, weaponizing the enforcement directorate. These three men spent time in jail. The voter of Delhi should have felt bad for them then. But the voter of Delhi didn't feel bad for them, not bad enough. So the
Yeah,
point
that's an
is
interesting.
that you can't make an esoteric argument about democracy. People have to buy into that argument.
Yeah, let me tell you, Barkha. I mean, even the Democrats in the US elections talked about democracy, but the voter was looking at transgender. The voter was looking at inflation. The voter was
Correct.
looking at, Biden's age. So I really will agree with you that for if you ask the common man who's spending half his time in the office and then cooking food at home, for them, democracy and constitution remain very esoteric,
And for
very
them, and for
elitist.
them, democracy is the vote. Hum
Is
vote
the
डालते
vote.
हैं,
As long as that is
is the
happening, they're
vote.
happy.
Yes,
But
yes.
I'm glad you asked me the question on AAP. I'll tell you what my answer to that is. If you look at AAP's vote shares, they have come down from 53, a staggering high of 53, to an impressive 44. 44 is still very high. At its
Mm,
peak, when Congress was in government, its vote share was around 40%. Now, here is
mm,
what I think has happened. The Delhi voter, having seen how the BJP under the lieutenant governor and through all the amendments it brought in to clip the wings of the AAP, is a smart guy. The Delhi people have said, hang on, if we vote for Kejriwal and his AAP, and they are anywhere going to be dysfunctional, then you're not going to get what Delhi expects, a better garbage collection and all the
yeah.
civic issues, etc. So they took a call to say that I think you can't punish AAP, but you might as why not give the chance to the party that is anyway in the central government? And that is one of the reasons why they probably will understand that the leaders were hounded, but they were also pragmatic and practical enough to say, why should we need to suffer because India has a political system that is a great dog? It's smart voting by the BJP. By the way, the AAP is not yet written off. I mean, a lot of people are saying it's finished, it's an existential crisis. It is of sorts, but if you look at the vote shares, I think Aam Aadmi Party
Yeah,
can
but
still
the
believe it was a
yeah,
story.
yeah, but the problem, Sanjay, is that Kejriwal has lost his own seat. So he has to
Yeah,
first make sure he stays out of jail. He is able to hold his party together. If
yeah,
he had won, maybe the story would have been
yeah,
different. Before we let you go, do you have any hopes the Congress is going to pay any attention to all the things you just said?
well, I can tell you that a lot of people messaged me actually on the
Yeah,
day of on the 8th, and they were sounding extremely low and disappointed. And I felt that the Congress party wasn't. I was not expecting them to do well in Delhi.
yeah.
Therefore, I was hoping that the Congress party will not fight 70 seats. It will, even if it is not having an alliance, it should only fight some 30 odd seats where it believes it is at least going to be a number two, even if you don't win a single. Focus your attention and be smart. You can actually say that this is for us a quarterfinal or a semi-final, but we are in the hunt to come back. I believe that a lot of people in the Congress are going to be disappointed, but I feel that if you're going to sit in your comfort zones, nothing is going to change. Writing to each other on a WhatsApp, making these snide confabulations in group chats, that's not the way forward for the Congress. You got to bite the bullet, speak out that you need change, and that's the only way to come back. the
Uh,
option the option is obsolescence, and that can
yeah.
happen very quickly.
I hope somebody listens to you because I think you're bang on. Thank you, Sanjay. Always a pleasure. Take care. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Take care.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.